Hey kids, cook real food. Katie Kimball here for the Healthy Parenting Connector, and have I got a treat for you today. Back for her second interview, my good friend Dr. Madiha Saeed. And if you're watching this on video, you can see her already dancing and cheering. And this woman has the most energy of any human being I know. And she's a practicing physician, an MD. She's got 4 kids. She writes books like I write journal entries. I mean, she just publishes book after book. I don't know how you do it, Dr. Saeed, but I'm honored by your presence. Thanks for being here.
Oh my gosh, I am so incredibly honored to be here. And thank you so much for these friendship over these years. I'm so incredibly honored.
You're amazing. So today we're going to talk about holistic parenting. We're going to talk about raising resilient kids who can handle what the world and the culture throw at them.
Yes.
And how to get our kids to take ownership of their health. So a quick introduction to Dr. Saeed, if you don't already know her. She's known as the Holistic Mom MD on social media. She's a practicing board certified physician in the US. She's an international speaker, author of The Holistic RX, Your Guide to Healing Chronic Inflammation and Disease, and a children's functional medicine book series, Adam's Healing Adventures. She's actually the author of quite a few other books as well. But she's a busy gal. Dr. Saeed is the Director of Education for Documenting Hope and Know We Well, sits on multiple medical advisory boards, including my friend Katie over at Wellness Mama. And she and her children together speak internationally, host podcasts, and have been regular hosts on some pretty big name shows. It is awesome. It is amazing. And I mean, I've met Dr. Saeed's kids. They're the kind of kids I want my kids to be friends with, right? Like that's what we all want to say is like, we want people to say, yeah, I want my kids to be friends with your kids. I want them to grow up together and all the good things. So what do you think, Dr. Saeed? Why does it feel like parenting is so hard in today's world?
Our kids are living imbalanced lives, period. Right? Because it's miserable. I mean, just look at the statistics. During this pandemic, there's been a 20% increase rise in suicide and a 40% increased rise in behavioral issues. These kids are sicker than ever before. So trying to use the same, core principles to parent us is not going to work with these sicker children, that their brains and bodies are just not working the way that they should be working. And that's why I felt that I needed to bring this book to the world, because the fact that I've been studying parenting for the last 13 years, and now also for the last 12 years, integrative holistic functional medicine. And when you combine both those worlds, it really blew my mind. And because it really goes back to asking that question, why, right? Why is our child sick? Why are they misbehaving? Why are they making these wrong decisions? Why are they difficult to parent? Why are our children overall just suffering? And by understanding that why, there lies the hope. So if we can understand the root cause of this suffering, then we can really help put our children's brains and bodies back into balance. Because if we put our children in an environment, internally and externally, to allow their brains to work better, guess what? They start to make better decisions, lower inflammation, and actually have the energy and overall health to take care of the world, fix our food system, improve our economy, and even save the planet, right? So this is why we got to focus on the brain, because when it comes to our children's decisions, what they wear, what they choose to eat, the decisions that they make are all dictated by their brain. And if you constantly are making the wrong decisions, those kids are really difficult to parent. But if your child is constantly making the right decision, those kids now are easier to parent. And so I really dive into looking at neuroeconomics, right? And that is the interdisciplinary field that seeks to explain human decision-making, the ability to process multiple alternatives and to follow a course of action, decision-making skills. And the two main pieces of those are your prefrontal cortex and your amygdala. And today's children, because they're living more imbalanced lives than ever before, they're eating more junk food, lack of diet variety, increased toxins, lack of play, lack of nature. All of that is actually disconnecting our prefrontal cortex from our amygdalas. Thereby, we're actually making irrational decisions On top of that, when we live imbalanced lives, that actually contributes to inflammation. And studies have now shown over and over and over that behavior and inflammation are really intimately connected.
And I think not just kids,
yes,
but I think we see a lot of disconnected brains in adults too. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh,
absolutely. Because when you have a disconnected brain, you're not using the full brain to make a rational decision. You're more angry, you're agitated, you're violent, you're poor relationships. It's us versus you mentality. And look what's going on in the world around us. And studies have actually shown us, specifically in children, that Harvard and Columbia did a study where they took 4,000 children and they found those children that had behavioral problems and emotional issues, and they tested their blood. So those kids that had emotional issues at the age of 8, they tested their blood at the age of 10 and found that these kids actually had 2 levels that were elevated, the CRP and the interleukin-6, which is a pro-inflammatory cytokine, right? That's produced in response to infections or healing trauma. So these studies have actually shown that kids with behavioral issues actually have more inflammatory conditions as they get older, depressed. These teens have increased risk of, premature death and even other diseases later in life. So because of this imbalanced lifestyle that's leading to these bad decisions, that then this cascade effect that also leads to increased inflammation. Basically, unhealthy brain, body, and behavior is leading to these children that are really difficult to parent.
Wow. I love that we're going all the way to save the planet. That's fantastic. It's just this go big or go home. Yeah. And I mean, what I hear you saying, and I think this is revolutionary. I don't think enough people are saying this. You're saying the behavior that comes out is intimately related to the toxins that are going in and or the good food or bad food that's going in, also intimately related to our biology, and that somehow that's all connected, right?
Yes.
That your biology is related to your behavior.
Absolutely.
No, don't hear enough people saying that.
No, and this is where we can then empower our children, right? That there's so much that you can do and not just leave it up to chance. I don't know about you, but I didn't really get a manual on how to parent children, right? Exactly. They just give you this beautiful bundle of joy, and then they expect you to, raise this, benefiting part of society, human being, right? That will benefit humanity with 0 skills that they give you. Right? You're like, oh my gosh, this human being. But that's what's so empowering, right? Holistic parenting helps to really nurture a child's mind, body, and soul from the inside out, right? And so we're able to then provide them skills that they need for emotional intelligence and enduring deep friendships and making the correct decision, managing stress. And thereby, when you do that, you're able to remain resilient. Because holistic parenting is really raising mindful children. And I mean, right now our kids are living in a world where they don't care what they're putting on their bodies. They don't care what they're, what they're doing in their bodies, how much social media they're consuming. None of that really makes a difference. They're just sort of on this hamster wheel, like all of us have been brainwashed to do, right? And so this is why bringing this awareness to our children, having our children understand mindfulness, because mindfulness allows us to see our internal and external environment clearly, showing us how best to respond and be fully aware of multiple different perceptions all at once. So holistic parenting is all about educating and empowering your children to be mindful of their bodies, their emotions, their social lives, their environment, keeping it all in balance. And then learning, because they know what their balance is, right? These children are able to be fully aware that if it starts to sway here or there, your children are able to understand, oh, I'm starting to sway. Quickly go back to your environment and your lifestyle to help change the behavior, whatever they're feeling, or get the outcome that they want, and talk to you about it too, to help them go through there, but then increasing resilience in any situation, right? And it's so much fun when you empower your kids with these skills instead of saying, oh, we're just going to leave all this up to chance.
Yeah. And I was thinking the word empower in my head just now, because it's very empowering as a parent to hear you say as an MD that, for example, if I can nourish my child's body, I can help improve their brain and their mindfulness and their behavior. If I can increase their mindfulness, they can be healthier in their body. Like, oh my gosh, that's nothing but empowering. And
Yes.
I have a great example that happened just 15 minutes ago. Honestly, you've met my daughter, Leah. She's a
Yes.
delight. She's home just a little sick today, just feeling a little off. And she just came and shared with me that she took a nap after she ate what felt good to her body for lunch. And she's
Oh
going to go
my
outside
gosh.
and get some fresh air. I said, how many 13-year-olds know
Oh my
how to care for themselves? She hasn't been on a screen all day. She read a book. And I'm like, gosh, okay, I'm doing something right. That's good.
Yes. Yes. And it's so powerful when you can give them these skills, and now they feel like they're just not sitting ducks in this world, that they just have to let an infection pass or feel agitated. And that's just the way I have to live. I mean, my 7-year-old, I walked downstairs and he was eating sauerkraut. And I was like, why are you eating sauerkraut for breakfast? And he was like, oh, mama, I woke up this morning feeling a little agitated. So I came downstairs and I had a bowl of sauerkraut because I wanted to feed my good bugs in my belly. And because if my friends in my belly feel better, I'll feel better. So you see how empowering this is, that if you can have, if you can teach and educate, empower your children with these simple life skills, right? That they can incorporate into their everyday daily routine, that when they start to even sway, before it even becomes a problem, before you even have to brainwash them, or, before you even have to bribe them, right? They're doing these activities on their own just to put themselves back into balance before it even becomes a problem. Can you imagine where humanity can go, Katie? Just think about it. If we can raise an entire world of children, just like your daughter and my children, can you imagine where they're able to then, have the power in their hands to make the choices for themselves to get them to feel better?
Well, the doctor's waiting rooms would be a lot more empty, first of all. That would be a fantastic, small achievement. But what about, okay, so you started out and my philosophical brain was lighting up, yes, that sounds so good. And now we've gotten a little bit into the practical of what it looks like, but I feel like there's a step in the middle of what does it practically, sort of my to-do list brain needs to be lit up a little bit. What practical steps should parents take to set up a system in their family where their child is going downstairs and eating sauerkraut because he feels agitated?
Yes, or your daughter who is doing all that amazing things. So I think it really starts with educating and empowering our children, right? My child knows, just like your children do, knows what happens when they put the food in their body and what happens to their body, right? They know about the gut microbiome. They know how to read labels. They're empowered in the kitchen. And this is why I love your work, because if they're empowered in the kitchen, they can make healthier choices for themselves. And then they don't feel like, they're being pushed to do a certain thing. They're being empowered. You're giving them the autonomy. And then you're also providing them the tools that they need and the environment that they need to get their brains and bodies to work effectively. So educating your child is really important with all of these different, because educating them about not even just your digestive health and detoxification, but also your stress, sleep, social, and spiritual health. And if we can help work on all of these different levels, right? And so for practical tips, by working on all these different levels, let me just tell you what my house looks like, right? And because I think that's easy, because again, on every day I cook for a family of 8, along with my kids, they help me, family of 8. And then on weekends, it can go up to 20, right? And this is my everyday regular routine. And so we wake up with gratitude, right? Because science has proven that gratitude can actually solidify these connections between the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala. So therefore your child is making more rational decisions and happier overall. Their body is happier. We know that it actually lowers inflammation and actually turns genes on and off. So gratitude is super powerful. So immediately when they wake up in the morning, they say 10 things that they're thankful for. They come downstairs, yes, and then we're singing songs. And as they're doing their chores, again, that's the next piece, but they're doing their chores, And we're singing the thankful song. We're working together to accomplish the things that need to be done that day before they go to school in the morning. My kids go to public school. They start school at 9 o'clock, but they get up. They love to, I know my younger kids really love to run outside and pick up stuff from my garden and then cook breakfast with that day, what they want to do. They're like, oh, well, let's see what we have in the garden today. Oh, look, how can we integrate this into our meals? So this way they run outside barefoot. They've already got the grounding in. They've gotten like the sunshine, a little bit of sunshine. They've gotten some nature. Now they're in the kitchen. They're helping to create meals that can help nourish their brains and bodies. Because remember, our children are at a critical phase of neurodevelopment with lots of hormones, structural, behavioral, molecular connections. And that's what's really important. And junk food actually destroys our children's brains, impairing their ability to think, learn, remember. So nutrients are absolutely important for our children's brains, bodies, and for everything to function. So again, focusing on whole foods, rainbow foods packed with color, fiber, nutrients, minerals, good fats that actually have healthier brains, less violent, improved behavior in the body. Then, so then what I've done in my house to decrease some of the stress, and this is something that I have found is, you know, when you started this beginning, how do I do what I do? I really feel because it's if you're doing all this stuff yourself, then you can't do this other stuff. So my kids, actually, we came together and they're a little bit older. They're 14, 10, 8, and 6. And they know now, they said, okay, the 10-year-old, he knows his responsibility is make all the lunches in the morning. He does all of that by himself without asking, right? Because that's what they decided to do amongst themselves. Oh. My 8-year-old is taking out the dishes from the dishwasher from the night before. My 6-year-old loves to wash dishes, like loves to wash dishes. So whatever's left, and he loves to vacuum. So he'll like pick up those things. But look at that. Lunches are done. You know, because they're able to find food for themselves, you know, that I have, or I'll help them with a little bit of the food and help them meal prep, whatever, for breakfast. But most of it's all done, right? Because right before they go to school, or one of them sees, oh, I laundry today. My 6-year-old likes to like float, but whatever they do, then they see, Mama, the laundry's not done. Oh, okay. And then they work together and finish the laundry. Yesterday, I know, but the thing is, that's where you provide them each other. What do you guys want to do? And we only do laundry once a week, right? So then, right, easy peasy, and then they fold it that same day, and then they're done. So we don't overwhelm them. But the thing is, now you've decreased stress and created routine that now for the rest of the day, they feel empowered. Like, look what I've just accomplished in just so short amount of time. But then when they come home, then they can work on they have fun. But then I also offer make sure that they have real life consequences. Like if they're not able to do that's work, because that's your responsibility when you wake up, and giving them the responsibility again to decrease that stress. And then we also have find a time they like to do when they come home is to meditate, right? And do their Epsom salt baths. Actually, some days we try to do Epsom salt baths a couple times a week, at least minimum once a week. So usually Wednesdays is late day school, so they do their Epsom salt baths. But what I'm trying to say is that you're incorporating these key foundations of digestive health and detoxification, and the 4S's stress, sleep, social, and spiritual health into their daily routine, so they don't even know that they're doing it. And then they know once their bodies are starting to feel out of balance that they're able to, oh, I need to sleep more today, Mama. I need to do my Epsom salt bath. I feel a little congested. Let me take I didn't take my supplements. So I'm going to take my Epsom salt bath. Can I have a little bit more bone broth? So they're able to, because we also communicate that, right? So I think that's the biggest thing. We have to first role model this behavior for them, and also communicate all day long. Like, oh, you're feeling all agitated today? That's a little weird. You don't normally feel like that. Or if, like, let's say my 10-year-old was arguing a little bit more than normal, right? It's like, is that normally the way you ask? And they're like, no, Mama, that's not normally I ask. Then what's going on? Oh, I probably feel. And then first, obviously at the beginning, first times you help them make that connection. You know, you've been going to sleep every day at like 11 o'clock and now you're all agitated. Would you think that could have caused that? And so you start these conversations with them, and you can do this at any age, right? And that's what's so powerful. Start these conversations, and then they start making the links, right? Katie, your daughter's only doing this because you've started to talk to her about this. And that's where I think empowering and educating your children is really important, and then incorporating these key pieces into their daily routine.
That is perfect. And I'm so blessed by you reminding me of that, because I tend to like make the connections myself. I'm like, oh, I know better. I know that asking the kids questions will build their own brains and, their own habits of curiosity and connectivity. So good reminder for me today. You said something, I think you said real life consequences are a way to decrease stress for kids. Did I hear that right?
Yes, because what happens is that when it's all about discipline, right? So what is discipline? I'm not talking about what we think discipline is, right? But discipline, it comes from a Latin root word to teach, right? And it's a range of ways a parent can interact and teach their child so that they understand what is expected of them. And so the child is then able to make a good thought out decision, a decision that allows them to, their prefrontal cortex and their amygdala to work together. When you sit down and say, this is what I would like you guys to do, right? Who wants to divvy these up, right? This is the things that we need to do. Let's have that. And then if they're unable to do so, like for example, they're unable to get to bed on time, even though they know that this is what they need to do, they're unable to get to bed on time. They wake up a little later, but the thing is, these chores still need to be done, right? So if they can't get it done, they're going to be a little late to school. Because that's real life consequences. Yes. And so just
let it
but
happen.
They'll do it like once, and they're like, no, we got let it happen. We know they're not going to get kicked out of school, but then have them understand that these things, these are though that's what you told me we're gonna get done, or your homework, for example, right? I'm not going to be on you to do your homework. And for me, I've never really been like, are you doing it? Are you doing it? Are you doing it? These are your responsibilities. And if you don't do them, you are going to suffer you're going to suffer the real life consequences. And so for me, treating them like an adult, right? And helping them understand that beforehand, because what happens is then otherwise these, when you don't know what's going on and you don't know what to expect, that's when the amygdala starts to go through, right? And that's why you're making these irrational decisions. So for good behavior, right? Let me just quickly go through this, is role modeling that behavior is super important. So that connection, that empathy that you're having with these kids, they're going to make mistakes. Their brains are not fully developed. It's going to take time, but then continue to role model that behavior and then build this connection with your children is important, and continue to have dialogue, and then treat them like adults. So and unfortunately, we don't give kids enough credit, right? Again, I talk to them, we set rules, we have real life consequences, the way that adults have. So we need to now raise our kids' expectations on what they're able to accomplish and what they can do. And then set those family rules, right? In my house, these things for me, what works better is that we get all of our stuff done in the morning time. I don't have to worry about later on, and I can now have the mental clarity to focus on changing the world, right? Whatever it is, and they can do that too. So that's what works. See what works best in your house and set those rules. Because if we can just, divvy up those responsibilities, it helps them and it helps us. And then use choices, right? Giving them choices and appreciate that good behavior, saying, oh my gosh, like when my child did that with the sauerkraut, I'm like, wow, you were such a big boy. That's awesome. And so appreciating, not just saying the good for everything, but if they're growing in something, not really saying that you're a bad boy or a good boy, but actually complimenting the actual task that they did, right? And last piece is when there is a problem, right, with your child, like let's say your child is difficult, right? To really go back and say, okay, that only happens when you're off balance. Where is it? Could it be loneliness? Could it be attention? How's their nutrition, stress, sleep, gratitude? Do they feel isolated? Do they need more attention? Do you need to spend more time together? So all of these things. And then remember, I know what you guys are hearing from me and what Katie's saying. You're like, my kids will never get there. It starts slow, right? To recognize that every hug you give your child, every conversation that builds upon each other. and just start somewhere. Even if you can just start with gratitude today, that's it. Just gratitude. Wake up with your children being more grateful. You just start it yourself. And then just have your children get involved in it too. Just start somewhere, because what you see, what I'm doing and what Katie's doing and the outcomes, this started years ago.
Yes.
This is not something that just happens overnight. But this is why I really wanted to bring this book to the world, was because I wanted to show you the things that I'm doing, that I have worked, so you guys can start to implement these things into your daily routines. So then we can then trickle this down to our children.
This is absolute gold, a treasure chest of practical parenting tips, and also the philosophical, right? Why we do what we do. What
Yes.
a good reminder for parents that giving our kids boundaries, giving them discipline, which means to teach, and letting them know very clearly what their expectations are, is not being mean or strict. It's making them feel safe, that their brain is going crazy if we don't do that.
If we don't, because their brains are not fully developed.
Yeah.
So when we don't give them structure, we think that we're benefiting them by being nice parents, by not giving them structure, letting them do their want. Then that's where you get these impulsive decisions, because the amygdala takes over and is like, wait, I don't know how to deal with this, or the brain. And then you're making these irrational decisions. So giving them that structure, guiding them, teaching them, conversing with them, hugging them, playing with them, all of that is really important to decrease the stress that our kids are dealing with on a daily basis today.
For sure. And I love starting with gratitude at the front end of the day. We in our family do it at the end, but I'm like, no, of course we need to start out differently. So that'll be our Kimball family's new habit, is attempting the gratitude at the beginning. Again, so many practical tips, a literal treasure trove. Thank you so much. But tell us about, well, two things. First of all, we said we were going to talk about resilience in this interview, and we keep not using that word. But am I correct in saying that everything you have said is wrapped up in the big package called resilient children? Yeah,
yes,
this is all.
Because guess what? This world is going to continue to change.
Yep.
This is where we want to provide our kids that no matter what happens, that they're able to recognize, and this is why it's important to be mindful, right? So then they recognize when they're starting to get off balance, and because resilience is about bouncing back, right? And so if we can teach our children on how to be resilient no matter what situation that they're dealing with, and then give them those tools to become resilient, oh my gosh, this world would be in such a different place today.
Yeah,
so,
yes, strong roots in our families. So beautiful. So friends, if you want to hear more of Dr. Madiha Saeed's fantabulous parenting tips, tricks, strategies, yes, tell us the book, The Holistic RX for Kids.
Yes, it's called The Holistic RX for Kids, Parenting Healthy Brains and Bodies in a Changing World. And it's basically the best of integrative, functional, holistic medicine combined with parenting world. The first part goes on why our kids are difficult to parent and why are they getting sicker, and then what to do about it. Also targeting, these common parents' dilemmas that they're dealing with, like sleep issues and bullying, trauma, the things that are going on now that we don't really address, but then taking a functional medicine and parenting view on that. And then also going into, if your child is sick, what to do about it. So the Holistic Mom MD's functional medicine approach to sickness, and then diving into recipes and even well child checks. When you go to your well child check, anywhere from 2-week to 3-year-old, I have what to do at each stage, because those are key pieces of neurodevelopment. Yes, on what you can do from a functional medicine and parenting's perspective to really optimize their brain and body health at each one of those stages. Resources, your name is here, about one of the trusted resources, and so much more. So this is great. And then I have a children's book series that's also coming out, Adam's Healing Adventures, The Power of Rainbow Foods. So
nice. And we will link below this interview in our notes to a Facebook Live that we did about Adam's Healing Adventures last fall. I love that you're marrying functional medicine and quality parenting, because it just underscores, and it brings us right back to the beginning of our conversation today, that our biology and our physical bodies are very much connected and unable to be separated from our brains and our mental health and our behavior, right? Our parenting,
absolutely,
and how we care for our children functionally, holistically. Such a gift to the world. Dr. Madiha Saeed, everyone get her book, follow her on social media. She is just amazing and will constantly remind you how and why we want to be better parents. Thank you, friend, for your time today.
Oh my gosh, my incredible honor. Thank you so much for all the work you're doing, Katie. Mwah.
Oh, and we will be back next week. I will be back next week for another Healthy Parenting Connector, helping you parents who really desperately want to raise healthy kids, connecting you with the experts who have the information you need. I'm Katie Kimball for Kids Cook Real Food.